Hi, everybody. Brian Norcross here with an update on what's going on with Hurricane Erick in the Pacific that's going to make landfall somewhere between Acapulco and east of there, a town called Puerto Escondido. That's going to happen tonight. So all hurricane preparations need to be underway and finished here today for this hurricane that's intensifying coming ashore tonight. Now, there's a lot of details. I'm going to get into that. But also, I want to mention that the Atlantic is tropical system free, and it's going to stay that way for the foreseeable future. So on the Atlantic side, Caribbean and Gulf, we're all good. All right, let's get to this situation in the Pacific. There you see Hurricane Erick this Thursday afternoon, 100-mile-an-hour storm. Hurricane hunters were out there confirming that, and it's moving to the northwest at 9 miles per hour. So it's heading up in this direction here. Exactly how does it impact Puerto Escondido and Acapulco is the question, which we'll get into. Pressure is dropping, winds are increasing. All indications are it will continue to do that for a while. So a strong storm is heading toward the coast of Mexico. But it's a small storm. Look at where the 40-mile-an-hour winds, tropical storm force winds, only extend out that far, and that's the hurricane force winds there. Tiny little area near the center, only 15 miles radius of the hurricane force winds. So whoever gets the worst winds are going to be kind of unlucky because it's going to be a fairly small part of the coast. But this tremendous amount of moisture is coming into those mountainous areas. And as we saw with Hurricane Helene, moisture and mountains don't combine. And these are very steep mountains there. And add to that, there is going to be storm surge along the coast. Now, a lot of the coast is a rocky coast, but the waves there on the Mexican coast are really big, unlike the Gulf Coast, makes these huge waves. And Puerto Escondido does have a big beach area. It's a surfing area. So unfortunately, if this storm comes in just the wrong way, that's going to be very bad for them, and that's going to happen overnight tonight. Here's what the latest cone from the Hurricane Center. Now, this is from late morning Eastern time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, 9 a.m. there Pacific time, where they had the cone. It might shift a little bit, as I'll show you, but in any case, the main thing here is you see Hurricane Center calling it for to continue to intensify. All indications are from the various computer models that that possibility is a significant possibility of it getting that strong Category 3 or maybe even higher level Category 3 by the time it gets to the coast. New models just in this afternoon kind of push everything to the right side of the cone. They were on the left side of the cone earlier, but it's not the individual models that we care about so much. It's the consensus model, which is kind of a smart average of all that. And the consensus has moved to the right side of the cone this afternoon, so I expect that later this afternoon we're going to get a readjusted cone to some degree. But just because it's going back and forth doesn't make a whole lot of difference from our confidence standpoint. But boy, this does mean in Puerto Escondido, really all hurricane preparations need to be taken care of this afternoon so that everybody gets to a safe place away from the beach in a sturdy, well-constructed home and away from where the water that comes up in this mountainous area, the rain that's going to come down and through the town there, and also it drains in all different places all along this coast here, but coming down through Puerto Escondido, it's going to be very, very dangerous. It's going to be a very extreme flooding situation, and then also up in the mountains and the valleys and so forth. Now, when we look at the AI models this afternoon, the one from the European Center is kind of weak in the storm, and it's not really much of a big deal. The Google model has been in the cone, more or less what the Hurricane Center has been forecasting, and the Google model does give us a range of intensity possibilities, and they have a good chance of the storm being stronger, maybe well up into Category 3. So that's the brand new model that just came out last week. The Google experimental model has it essentially what the Hurricane Center is forecasting. Now, if it goes down the middle of the cone from 11 a.m. Eastern time this morning, there's where the hurricane force winds would be according to the National Hurricane Center forecast. There's where the 40-mile-an-hour plus tropical storm force winds would be. But notice if everything shifts to the right a little bit, that would put the hurricane force winds here much closer to Puerto Escondido and driving the water in to the harbor there, coming around like that. So, and this is going to be early morning tomorrow. So this is going to be an overnight thing. It's going to be in early morning hours. It's going to be extremely dangerous there on the Mexican coast. And if it were to wobble back this way, yes, Acapulco, that was so devastated by Hurricane Otis 2 years ago, could be affected. Now, we'll see that in the warnings here from the Hurricane Center. And you see the purple, that's the hurricane warning from east of Puerto Escondido up to almost Acapulco. But Acapulco just under a tropical storm warning because the thinking is they would not likely get the direct hit, but they might get some fringe effects. Also, down here on the Emerald Coast, this is called, beautiful area there with big homes, nice beaches all along there. They're going to get storm surge and monster waves. Most of the homes are elevated there because the land goes up very dramatically once you get just past the beaches there in that part of Mexico. But still, for anything right at the beach, this is going to be devastating, I think, tonight. As far as the atmosphere go, it's just pristine out there. All the strong winds are up here to the north, across the Gulf and the Caribbean. You might say, well, what is that down there? That looks sort of kind of hostile, strong upper level winds, but that's related to the storm itself, and that's not the general atmosphere. The general atmospheric winds are there farther to the north. And then adding to the kind of conducive atmosphere, you have this incredible area of very warm water, and that's what the storm is going to pass over before it gets to the coast. You see in the upper 80s there. In the Atlantic, look at this, hostile conditions all the way from Mexico and Texas all the way to Africa. Combine the dust in there, and we have just no tropical systems can make it from Africa on across. They get weakened by all this, and then the weak version gets to the Pacific where it's super conducive, and they turn into all these storms. We've had a record number of storms in the Pacific. Is this delay in storms forming in the Atlantic unusual or tell us something about something? The answer to that is no. The average date is only about now when we get our first storm. It's just we've seen some the last few years so much earlier. It kind of makes us think that this is unusual. But we don't expect any development in the Atlantic for at least the next 7 days. Good chance it's going to be into July now before anything will develop. But for our friends in the Pacific, this is the day, this is the night to be absolutely prepared. Puerto Escondido, all along the coast there, Emerald Coast. Be sure you know exactly where you're going to be when all this begins later on this afternoon into tonight, and then overnight into early tomorrow. All right, you guys, you all take care.